Well, good morning, everyone. I'm back here this morning with Ministers Harris and Dunlop to provide another update on the fire situation and developments that have taken place over the weekend. We know that the fire is expanding from 650,000 hectares up to 735,000 hectares, so it's moving quickly, and as of this morning, there are a total of 190 wildland fires across Ontario. 56 of those are still considered not under control, 112 are being observed, and 6 are being held, and 16 are under control. We have 155 fire crews and approximately 80 water bombers and helicopters remain in operation across the north, with roughly 40 additional support aircraft ready to assist. 13 communities have been evacuated or are still in the process of evacuating, with a decision still pending on one additional community. Through Ontario Corps and partner organizations, we're supporting evacuees in municipalities across the province with increased 211 call center at capacity by distributing hygiene kits, medical supplies, N95 masks and food pallets, and by having volunteers on standby and ready to assist where they needed most. We're also deploying air purifiers, air scrubbers, and replacement filters to support impacted communities. On Saturday, Minister Dunlop issued an order expanding access to the Alert Ready system so that municipalities and First Nations can request that emergency messages be delivered directly to their communities through television, radio, and mobile devices. On Saturday, I was in Thunder Bay, meeting the volunteers, emergency response staff, and local leaders to better understand exactly what they need and how we can support them. As I've said from the beginning, we will not spare a penny fighting these fires and keeping people safe. We've spent nearly $1.5 billion on wildland firefighting since we took office, doubling the base budget from $70 million in 2018 to $150 million today. And we're investing another $650 million to add 6 new water bombers and 5 new helicopters to our fleet. Every year, we spend whatever it takes to deal with the wildland fires. We've hired nearly 170 permanent positions over the last 2 years and increased compensation for pilots and firefighters so that we can continue to hire and retain staff ahead of fire season. I want to express my gratitude to the incredible team I met in Thunder Bay. And until you see the operations, you can't understand the whole scope of it and how hard they're working day in and day out, 24 hours a day. And the volunteers and emergency response workers across the province, including fire rangers, air crews, local and provincial police, and all other support staff from here in Ontario and across Canada that are supporting evacuees and helping get these fires under control. That includes all the staff at the Ministry of Natural Resources, the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness and Response, and the staff here at the Provincial Emergency Operations Center. Ontario owes them a huge debt of gratitude, and we will continue working night and day to support them and get them the resources they need. I want to thank everyone, and may God bless the people of Ontario. Thank you.
We will now take questions from the media. Media can come to the microphone and state their name and outlet. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
Good morning, Premier. Mark McAllister from City News. We now know that some of the evacuations go beyond just Thunder Bay, that some people are actually being brought into Toronto as well.
Yes.
Just looking for more information in terms of the logistics involved in that, what kind of arrangements have been made, and for how long?
Well, I'll give a quick answer, then I'll pass it over to my minister. You know, what I understand, what I saw, they were bringing people in on Dash 8s because they can land on dirt runways, and then they get transferred over the larger planes, and then they determine if they're going to Toronto, Niagara Falls, or Sudbury, or all the other host areas, Kenora, and so on and so forth. But I'll pass it over to the minister.
Thank you, Premier. And as of now, we've coordinated 13 evacuations. So they're in host cities like Thunder Bay, Kapuskasing, Sudbury, Barrie, and then Toronto has put their hand up as well as Niagara Falls. So a lot of coordination in those efforts, as you can you would understand. And as the Premier said, they're flying typically into Thunder Bay or to Red Lake as a hub, and then from there going out to those host communities. So the folks at our Provincial Emergency Operations Centre are coordinating calls every day with the different communities who are impacted and who are evacuating. We do have some that are self-evacuating as well. So we're working very diligently with those communities. But we have to look at things such as the healthcare capacity in the areas, hotel capacity, and the wraparound services as well. So we're working closely with the host communities to ensure that those services are provided once an organization or once a community is coming into a host city. We mentioned Ontario Corps is also helping. So we have Ontario 211 is acting as an information line for non-emergency calls. We have Feed Ontario and the Ontario Federation of Indigenous Friendship Centres, who are also working at deploying food, emergency food to those communities. Global Medic, we delivered actually N95 masks to Thunder Bay when we were up last week. They're doing hygiene kits. Red Cross is setting up the evacuation center for us in Thunder Bay. That's for communities like Collins First Nation and Armstrong, who are unincorporated communities, so they have a place to go as well. So lots of coordination around behind the scenes, but ensuring that safety is the priority of those evacuees.
Thank you. Second question for the Premier. We've heard from a number of First Nations communities and the chiefs as well. We do know that Chief Fiddler at this point has called for more coordination between the province and the federal government. Could you elaborate on what exactly is being done on that point?
Well, I'll be meeting the Prime Minister in the next day or so. I'll be heading over to PEI to meet the rest of the premiers. One of the topics are going to be a national fire strategy. We need the support from the federal government. They've been very good. They've given us 2 Dash 8 planes to spray the fire retardant down, but we need a large national fire strategy. We seem to be going through this every single year, if not ourselves and out in Manitoba, if you remember last year, and a little bit in Saskatchewan and Alberta and BC and Quebec, right now in Nova Scotia. So right across the country in fire season, unfortunately, they have lightning hits and some other areas that may start a fire, but mostly lightning hits. And it sounds like the minister wants to have a few words there.
Actually, I'm going to add to that. I've been speaking with Chief Fiddler. We're on text message. I had a call with him last week. We actually have a call this afternoon to follow up on some of the items. So we've had great coordination with him as well. And I'll pass it on to Mr. Harris too.
I just want to add that there's year-round coordination with First Nations and communities across, obviously, Northern Ontario, but around Ontario when it comes to emergency management. It's something that we take very seriously. We really encourage all communities, especially in the north, to have emergency management plans and work with us, with M&R, work with the Ministry of Emergency Preparedness and Response to develop those, so that if situations arise like what we've seen where there's been intense fire activity over the last week, if the M&R isn't available to directly respond in the moment, that you've got a plan to be able to self-evacuate. So we're working with those communities constantly. I have spoken with many First Nations leaders over the last almost week now. Really, this all kind of kicked off Monday, Tuesday last week. So there's a lot of coordination that happens, and I just want to make sure that we are, again, getting the right information out there. It's extremely important. We need to leverage you folks to be able to do that. So really appreciate also the coordination and help that we've seen from the media over the last week as well. I think I'd like to thank you for that and highlight that. It's been really great to be able to get those messages out there. It's very important. Thank you.
Catherine Moras from Radio-Canada. I was wondering if you could update us on the latest number of evacuees.
It was over 1,800 this morning. I think at one time it was over 2,000 yesterday. Then a couple went back to the community. I was talking to Chief Sonny from Arrowland. They evacuated, self-evacuated, and then they jumped back into their cars and their buses and they went back into the community. But maybe you have another number? That's the numbers I have.
Nope, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, Premier, yesterday, once again, Donald Trump called on Canada to better manage their forests. He doesn't want so much smoke to go to the U.S. He threatens to put new tariffs on Canada if there's more wildfires. What do you respond to that?
Well, it's disappointing to say the least, and a message to President Trump is if he actually does his due diligence one of the largest fires started from Minnesota. And that's not a knock against Minnesota, because Governor Walz and I have an incredible relationship. He called me up and said there's YMCA campers stuck in the middle of the lake. We sent our OPP out there, as well, the Canadian Armed Forces, to rescue these campers. He was very, very grateful. But maybe if you got rid of the tariffs and on softwood lumber, it might make a difference until we can harvest these areas and ship them down. I got to remind President Trump that 33% of the lumber, and we have better quality lumber here in Canada, comes from Canada to build their homes. And he's wondering why the housing cost of building is going up, because he's putting tariffs on his #1 trading partner. Again, maybe President Trump would offer his closest allies and friends some support rather than sit there and threaten tariffs when Hurricane Helene went a little wild down in the Carolinas and Georgia last year. Who were the first to step up? We directed over 50 trucks, hydro linesmen, to go down there with 100 different linesmen going down there to support our closest neighbors. That's what we do. When they had the inferno wildland fires out in California, who was first there? We were there. We sent 2 water bombers standby, right ready to go in there. We sent them out west until they could be deployed immediately. And we couldn't get the water in the planes because they had a problem. You got to remind President Trump that there's 3.9 million acres burning in the United States right now. And if we had resources, we would send them down to our closest friends and allies. So, you know something, rather than criticize and threaten Canada, your closest friends, maybe one day you're going to need our help like you did last year, and we deployed the people. I get frustrated just listening to that bunch of rubbish.
And finally, last question. When you talk about the alert system that was changed over the weekend, can you explain us exactly what changed and how that's going to help communities deal with wildfires?
Well, the Alert Ready system was already available to communities, so they have used it in the past for things like a boil water advisory. We used the system twice last year. It's just reminding municipalities and First Nation communities this is another tool in the toolbox that they can use. We've used the Alert Ready system 5 times this year for wildland fires, and we just want to encourage them and remind them that this system is here. The mayors, chiefs, community emergency management coordinators, as well as fire chiefs, have access to contact us here at the Provincial Emergency Operations Center 24/7, and to that those messages can get out within 20 minutes. So just another tool in the toolbox, and just reminding our partners that to please contact us so we can get that information out to communities quickly.
And going back to President Trump, because he got me on a roll right now, with all the assets the U.S. has, and he's sitting there complaining, why don't you send up some water bombers? Why don't you start helping us? Like we would help you in a heartbeat. And we looked on the national data sheet down there, and I had to double check it because I find it astounding that they said over 40,000 fires. That's ridiculous. And I double checked if there was extra zeros in there, but anyways, you should support your neighbors. That's my message to the president. Sorry to go on a little rant, but it drives me crazy.
Hi, I'm Sean Bog, Globe and Mail. Ontario currently has about 150 firefighting crews, about 40 short of the historical complement of 190, and 100 fewer than the number recommended by the union. Why are they short-staffed?
Well, I'm going to answer this. You know, I talked to Greg Horton, head of the Firefighters Association. The guy's an absolute champion. We're in the midst of training our local firefighters to be able to go up into the wildland fires, and that's what we're doing. But isn't it amazing that not one fire chief, not the presidents of the association, have ever criticized us? They said the total opposite. There's no other government in the history of Ontario that has supported firefighters like our government has. And I encourage you to call every chief in the province, call the president of the Firefighters Association, and ask them how much we've supported our firefighters. He said it's unprecedented, but we're going to continue cross-training our firefighters so we can deploy firefighters from Toronto and the GTA and out in Ottawa and train them so they'll be able to be deployed. And I'd like to thank Matt Pegg, former Toronto fire chief, now the deputy minister. So Matt, I don't want to bring you into this, but do you have any comments? You're good? You want to say a few words? Yeah,
Sure.
okay.
Thanks, Premier. Hi, everyone. I'll just say this. There is an extraordinary amount of collaboration that happens on a minute-to-minute and day-to-day basis across the Ontario Public Service. And obviously, my entry into the OPS is relatively new, but there literally, I'm here today with one of my colleagues, Deputy Minister Vanderdoom. There is not a day that goes by where our two ministries and the entire network across the Ontario Public Service is working together in a proactive, collaborative manner. And as you heard the Premier said, there is a lot of very proactive thinking in place. There is a lot of work being done about what is going well today, but also what are the opportunities we have to expand that in the future. And those are conversations that are very active at the staff and officials level, obviously with our elected leaders who provide us a direction. So I'm very encouraged. What happens, you've heard the Minister speak and the Premier speak, what is happening in the Provincial Emergency Operations Centre, what is happening in every firefighting base across MNR is inspiring, frankly, and it's a privilege and an honor to serve here now and to watch all of that and to be a part of the response to what is truly a demanding and challenging event. Thank you, sir.
How many years did you serve as on the fire department in Toronto?
Just over 32 years of service in
Thank you for your service.
the fire service, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just on the topic of staff, so we talk about sort of 155, 156 crews. Just to put that into context, that's well over 700 people. So there's usually about 4 to 5 people on a crew. So it seems like a bit of a small number, but we're talking about almost 1,000 fire rangers. These are the folks who actually get out there and are on the front lines, running hose through the bush, fighting those fires, setting up sprinklers around what we call values to protect them. So it's a pretty substantial number when you actually look at it. And we've also added over 100 people over the last year as well. So we're doing a lot. We've looked at our compensation model as well, which we've changed a little bit over the last year, and we've actually been able to retain the overwhelming majority of our crew leaders. So those are the folks who have a little bit more experience. Maybe they've been on the service for a few years, and they're the people who are sort of overseeing that crew unit. So there's a lot going on, and this, again, I keep saying this and reiterating it, making sure that we have the most pertinent, up-to-date, truthful information being portrayed to the public is extremely important. So I know you probably have a follow-up, and we're happy to hear it. Thank you.
Minister Dunlop wrote in a letter Saturday that Ontario is expanding access to the National Alert Ready System. Her office and herself have later now said that it was only a message to reinforce and expand awareness of how the existing system works. What do you say to criticism that your government is framing past changes as new help?
Well, as we said, it's to reiterate this tool in the toolbox for our municipalities. I gave the example of it being used 5 times this year, but what we took from Thunder Bay the other day when we met with some of the MNR staff, and the Premier said to them, what is it we can be doing to help you? What's the message you need? Where do you need help? And one of the things was ensuring that people know the Alert Ready system is there. And so that's what we're doing, is making sure that our municipalities, our First Nation leaders, our fire chiefs, our community emergency management coordinators can use that service, because obviously it hasn't been being used enough, and we want to ensure that adequate information is getting out to our communities and to members quickly.
Hi, Tina Danny with the Trillium. Just going back to the staffing issue, given that these wildfires appear to they're more frequent, they're more intense, why not move Ontario to a year-round model where you have permanent staff as opposed to relying on seasonal staff and kind of catching up after the fact?
Well, before I pass to the minister, as he said, we hired 100 last year, another 68 this year, so we're ramping it up. But over to you, Minister.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, something we've talked about for years now. We actually just reclassified, again, our crew leaders, some of those senior leadership as full-time year-round staff now, which was very important. When we look at sort of, we'll just say that the general sort of wildland firefighter, a lot of them are students. They go to school through the winter. There's a lot of folks who also have other things that they do. I don't want to say on the side, but it's not as easy as just saying we're going to be a full-time force, because the folks who are actually out there doing the work are often doing some other things during the sort of the off season, if you want to call it that. So what we've tried to do is look at those people in those senior leadership positions, make sure that we're able to retain those staff. They're extremely, extremely important to us. We heard from them that was a big piece. So we've been able to do that. We did that last year. So there's a lot of good things happening on that front. Thanks.
And Premier, switching gears, I wanted to ask about Minister Cho, or former minister. He kind of misled the public when he said that he expensed those hotels because of late night sittings, because he expensed them during months where there were no late night sittings. So is it acceptable to you that a caucus member is lying to the public?
It's unacceptable on spending taxpayers' money. He's no longer a minister, but Stan has paid every single penny back, as everyone will, to the taxpayers, and it's already been paid back.
But what about the fact that he's misleading the public?
Again, it's unacceptable to spend money of the taxpayers where, in my opinion, shouldn't have been spent.
Hi, Premier. Colin DeMello from Global News. I'm here to ask as well about Stan Cho, but less about taxpayers, more about the riding association and donors to the PC party. Over the last 3 years, as MPP for Willowdale, Stan Cho has billed $100,000 for meals. That includes dinners at steakhouses, lobster restaurants, and a lot of joints in Yorkville. He's charged airline tickets outside of the riding, hotel stays at the Fairmont Chateau Laurier, and even the cost of renting a vehicle from a limousine company. Question to you, Premier. What is the expectation for a donor to the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party? Are they to expect that their money will be spent fueling the lavish lifestyle of an MPP?
No, again, it's totally unacceptable what Stan has done. He's paid back every single penny. And moving forward, the Board of Internal Economy, they're getting rid of that offer of staying in the city in hotels. But again, he's paid back every single penny, like every single other person will be doing.
Okay, you're obviously speaking about the hotel charges charged to taxpayers.
Anything.
I'm talking about the donors. I don't think he's repaid about $100,000 plus of money taken from the Willowdale Riding Association. Sorry, you were going to say?
No, go ahead.
Is he going to remain a member of your caucus? Is this acceptable within your caucus to bill donors hundreds of thousands of dollars for meals, flights, and hotel rooms?
Everything is unacceptable if you don't put it to the right place. So it's totally unacceptable.
So the Riding Association is the right place then?
No, again, Colin, it's unacceptable. And he's no longer a minister in our government.
Richard Southern, 680 News Radio. As you say, Minister Cho did resign over the $16,000 in hotel expenses, but many other of your caucus members, Premier, spent even more. Nina Tangri, $19,000, and above them all, Hardeep Gurwal, $29,000 in hotel expenses, despite the fact that he's within commuting distance. My question, Premier, if you said Stan Cho did the right thing in resigning, should Mr. Gurwal resign as parliamentary assistant, and what consequences should he face, sir?
Well, they're all paying it back, and it's unacceptable. If you guys think for a second I'm happy about this, you're wrong. It's unacceptable. They're all paying it back. Simple as that.
There may be Ontarians, I'm sure, Premier, that will look at the $120,000 in hotel expenses and not see a huge difference between that and the almost $200,000 you charge taxpayers for costs related to your private jet, which you've quickly sold. My question is, if you're directing your caucus members to pay back the hotel money, will you pay back the money for your private jet?
Well, again, I love your questions. Can I tell you something? When I traveled out to Utah, when I traveled to South Carolina, guess where I ate? I ate at McDonald's. I pay out of my own pocket. I've never, ever charged the taxpayers. I'm the only premier in the history of this province that has a zero expense account. I'm going to repeat that, a zero expense account. So I don't expect people to have a zero expense account, even in the opposition, when they used to fly all over the world, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars going over to Asia and so on and so forth. I find it pretty ironic and hypocritical from the opposition, politicizing it. I have zero time for anyone that doesn't respect the taxpayers' money, and we're going to continue doing it. But maybe what you should do is look into my expenses and find out that I have zero expenses. The only premier in the history of this province. And yes, I'm the only premier in the history of the province that didn't fly around in government planes. I flew commercial, and yes, I have to charter some too. So I respect the taxpayers. Simple as that.
Your cabinet doesn't?
But again, I respect it. Next question.
Good morning, Alyssa Mendez with the Canadian Press. Our reporter, who's in Thunder Bay, visited the evacuee reception center at the Fort Williams Garden area and was told that nobody has registered yet. We've also been told that there's a shortage of hotel rooms in Thunder Bay. Is this a case of people not being aware about the reception center, or are more evacuees just being diverted?
Well,
from Thunder Bay?
before I pass it to the minister, we saw it firsthand. They had over 150 beds, cots, hygiene packages, food to feed them, towels, showers, everything in the community center. So we're communicating it to the First Nations. Keep in mind, roughly about 1,800 evacuees have come out of their First Nations communities, and they're being spread out right across the province until there's not pressure on one area. But there's plenty of room, there's plenty of beds in Thunder Bay and in Toronto, in Niagara Falls, in Kenora, Red Lake, and so on and so forth, Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie.
Is Ontario concerned that that communication is not enough if people aren't registering?
Well, go ahead, Jill.
So we were actually at the evacuation center on Saturday and met with some of the Ontario Corps partners who were there setting it up. At that time, nobody had registered, but it was set up as an evacuation center for the unincorporated communities such as Collins First Nation and Armstrong. And so, it's there to serve those needs. I think a lot of people from those communities seek shelter with family and relatives, et cetera. They were smaller areas, but it's there for that intent, or for anyone else. If we have flights coming in through Thunder Bay that aren't maybe able to get out when they need to, it's kind of a backup for those folks as well. But that's why we set up 211 as well, to ensure that we're getting that information out so that anybody can use that non-emergency number to get information about things like the evacuation center, what may be going on in their communities. But we're working closely with all of our host communities as we move forward, because it's an ongoing situation. So we may have 13 evacuated communities right now, but it is ongoing. So we need to be prepared for worst case scenarios and getting people into safe locations.
I can tell you, we saw it firsthand. It is very, very organized. As soon as they get off the plane, they go into the building, they get registered. They get registered no matter if it's a male, a female, young kids, and we register everyone to make sure that they have a spot and a roof over their heads and food in their stomach. So I want to thank the people over in Thunder Bay. I want to thank the host cities that are bringing people in and keeping them in hotel rooms and feeding them and taking care of them. That's pretty remarkable, and it's well organized, extremely well organized.
This will be the last reporter.
Premier Sean Jeffords, CBC. Another question about the hotel expenses, sir. Minister Cho stepped down, it seems, on his own accord, based on a judgment that the spending wasn't appropriate. Have you asked the cabinet ministers on that list who've also spent that money to step down? And do you need to, frankly, shuffle your cabinet at this point?
Well, Stan stepped down, and he did the right thing, and he paid everything back. So we're going to make sure that we put a microscope under this, and it won't happen again. And I apologize for it even happening in the first place. It's very frustrating, to say the least. But thank you for the question.
Premier, also, just more broadly, when it comes to this type of spending and this rule with the Board of Internal Economy, is this not a natural side effect of the government sitting fewer days and longer hours into the night, where it puts MPPs, specifically in your caucus, in a position where they felt that they could spend this money, taxpayer money, to stay in these hotels? Should you not be, frankly, lengthening the calendar and sitting longer?
Oh, the Board of Internal Economy, it's made up of all parties. So any decision gets approved by all parties. And again, we're going to watch every single penny.
This concludes today's press conference.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Premier, you're going to be on CNN. What's your message when you're on CNN?
Well, my message to Wolf Blitzer and CNN, I'll probably repeat what I said right here. It's unacceptable that President Trump still wants to tariff us and rather than help us. That's the message. Isn't it ironic? Out of 50 states, I only had Governor Healy ask, hey, how's it going from Massachusetts? And can I help you with anything? And rather than sit there and complain, why don't we see some help from President Trump and send up some water bombers, send up some wildland firefighters. But then again, they have thousands of fires going in the U.S. right now, but you don't hear Canada ever complain about smoke going from, let's say, California at the time into British Columbia or over in Alberta. We're doing everything we can. It's an act of Mother Nature. It happens around the world, as we've seen around the world, no matter if it's France or Ireland or other places around the world, in Australia. And we just believe in supporting our neighbors. And it's unfortunate that the president doesn't believe in supporting our neighbors. But folks, that's not going to deter us. We know the American people love Canadians. Canadians love Americans. I differentiate between the American people and the great governors versus President Trump. Thank you.